In the last episode, we installed all the ICs. The board finally looked like a computer, but a computer without a keyboard is basically a very expensive paperweight. Today, we're bringing it to life with keys, stabilisers, and a touch of soldering insanity. Before we get started, a quick update about Earie's8bit.com, now with added shop. Yes, the website finally has a proper store and it even works. I'm still selling through eBay. If you want a cheaper option, buying direct from me from the site is the way to go. No middleman fees, just me and a plastic crate full of neatly organised PCBs pretending to be an inventory system. You'll also find all the usual bits there: parts lists, schematics, GitHub files, and links to the tools that I use on the bench. Those referral links help support the channel, so if you've wondered what soldering iron is that, now you know where to look. And if you're a maker building retro hardware, expansion, mods, replica boards, or something that really shouldn't work but somehow does, I'd love to hear from you. I'm always looking for interesting projects to feature, and I'm happy to link back to your shop so people know where to find your work. So if you want updates, resources, or a place to grab surplus PCBs before they migrate back into the workshop, head on over to Earie's8bit.com. Welcome back to Earie's 8-Bit Workshop. We're now on episode 4 of building the Hackjunk Atom, so if you haven't watched the first 3 parts, I suggest you go back and take a look now. Today we'll be assembling the keyboard, dealing with stabilizers that refuse to cooperate, and moving on to the case, which, as you will see, has a bit of a story behind it. And by the end of the episode, the Hackjunk Atom will be physically complete and ready for power. Before we start, a quick public service announcement. I ordered Cherry MX switches from AliExpress and discovered that the legs were too wide for the Hackjunk PCB. These ones have legs like tiny spatulas. I've ordered a second purple set, which matched the ones that I used on the TI-9922. I had 1 or 2 left over and was able to test them for size before ordering. They have nice, sensible cylindrical legs that actually fit. Here you can see the Oddies Atom keyboard PCB, behind which is the Hackjunk version. Chris used the larger holes, so the spatula legs will fit nicely in there when we get round to building it. But for the Hackjunk board, you'll want the thin-legged variety. One nice surprise is that the key switches clip into the PCB well enough to hold themselves in place. No key switch frame needed. The stabilizers, however, absolutely loath to enter service. They fell out more times than I care to admit. This is the most meditative part of the build, placing 35 switches and soldering them one by one. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you watch them in real time. Even I don't want to do that in real time. Once the switches are in, it's time for the keycaps. Some of these are non-standard, like break, rep, control. We'll install them carefully using the reference diagrams to avoid typing the alphabet backwards. For the non-standard keys, just try to find a spare key from the same row so that the angle of the keycaps match. We'll add custom stickers for these later, but for now, let's just get the keycaps in place. I had a real problem with the key stabilizer. Keeping it in place was a nightmare, and connecting it onto the spacebar was even worse. In the end, I just gave up. Fortunately, Andy put 2 extra key switch holes either side of the spacebar switch, and these lined up with slots on the spacebar. So having 3 switches for the space is overkill, but it does work, and I wasn't in the mood to order another stabilizer set. With the keycaps on, we have a few more components to solder on. In hindsight, I probably should have started with these. We've got 10 4K7 resistors, a 7445 logic IC and an LED, and a connector for the ribbon cable back to the main board. Now, if you're following along at home, you may notice that I've done this in the wrong order. The low profile components really should have gone on before the keycaps, but I was a bit too eager to make it look like a keyboard, and now I'm paying the price with some very fiddly soldering. The Atom build so far has been fairly straightforward, somewhere between the ZX81 Plus 38 and the TI-9922 in terms of complexity. Nothing too frightening, but enough little quirks to keep you honest. I've suggested to Andy at Hackjunk that an interactive bomb might help future builders find where everything goes. He's looking into it, and I think it would make the build a lot smoother. But for now, this is the last of the soldering for the entire build, or at least that's what I think at the moment. Future me may have opinions on that matter. Now, I've had great feedback from original Atom builders, with stories about how the keyboard was actually one of the most painful parts of the original build, and here's why. This is the original key switch assembly. Each switch was mounted into a key frame and had metal leads that had to be threaded through the PCB all at once without bending any of them. One Stardot user rebuilt their Atom keyboard recently and used strands from an Ethernet cable to help guide each lead through the holes. It looks bizarre, but it actually did work. And yes, this wasn't improvisation. The official manual literally says, carefully remove the key assembly from its protective backing and lay it key top side down with the lead sticking upwards. Position the keyboard over the key assembly. Lower the circuit board over the key leads. Ensure all of the key leads poke through. Solder each key lead on the side of the large plated through holes in the circuit board, pushing the leads over the side of the hole where necessary. Do not fill the holes with solder. Suddenly the modern design doesn't seem so bad. Andy at Hackjunk thoughtfully provides STL files for a full Atom case, even chopped into printable sections for easier printing. It's a brilliant design. But I already had a 3D printed case. You see, building an Atom is something that I've been planning for years, and back in pre-COVID days, the only clone I knew about was the Atom 2015 project. So I printed a case from plans shared on Stardot. What I didn't realise was that the Atom 2015 clone used a Godel FPGA, which was already out of production. So the case sat on a shelf for years, printed, ready, and completely useless. Now, the Hackjunk Atom is designed to fit into an original Atom case, almost. You see, Andy's flipped the PCB so the ICs face upwards, avoiding the original Atom's habit of ejecting chips as you type too hard. But that meant that the PCB needs to sit on the base of the case and not hang from the lid. And that meant that the entire rear panel had to be cut out to make room for the connectors. So out came the rotary tool and I carved away the PLA. Andy's finished Atoms will look much cleaner than mine, but this case has waited years for its moment, and it's earning its battle scars. With the PCB now sitting on the base, the mounting holes are lined up with fresh air. So I wrote a small OpenSCAD script to generate pillars of any height or width I needed, and I printed a batch and glued them in place to hold the PCB with the case screws. I was also able to use the same script to generate a holder for the speaker, which was nice. Now, the original Atom keyboard was slightly wider, so the keyboard aperture on this case has left gaps around this new smaller keyboard. And after a lot of careful measuring, I wrote another OpenSCAD script to generate inserts that close the gaps neatly. I printed them in black, but the keyboard surround decal hides everything, and from the outside it looks clean, and I'm really happy with the results. For the keyboard surround, I'm using sticky backed vinyl. I wanted to get quite a thick and stiff sheet. I don't think the one I'm using is durable enough, so I'll be on the lookout to replace it. Vinyl is one of those things that looks perfect on a web page, but you really don't know what you've bought until it's in your hands. This sheet is definitely too thin, and the adhesive is not quite up to the job. It's tending to bubble up and then lift. While it looks good now, it's not going to be durable enough in the long run. I'll be heading to a craft shop to find something with a bit more stiffness and a lot more stick. The original atom surround was much thicker, more likely to crack than bend, but once it was in place it didn't move, so that really wasn't a problem. Recreating that feel is tricky. The one thing I'm still not sure about is the Atom logo. I've had to resort in printing a vinyl sticker, but the black doesn't quite match. If anyone has a better idea for getting a clean colour matched logo onto a surround like this, I'd love to hear it. So back in the day there wasn't really such a thing as a standard keyboard, and as a result not all of the keys on here are actually as the legend would show. So what I've got is this. It's a printed vinyl adhesive sheet. I've printed out some new keycap stickers, and I've got an Acorn Atom label here as well, which will go onto the case. So I'm going to cut each of these out now and put them in place on the keyboard. Without paying for custom keycaps, which could easily cost more than the rest of the components combined, this is the most practical way of getting the Atom's non-standard keys looking the part. I've seen modern keycaps with little clear plastic tops that let you slide a label underneath, but they've always given off more 1990s cash register vibe than early 1980s home computer. Not quite the aesthetic we're going for here, so stickers it is. It takes a bit of careful cutting, a bit of lining things up and a lot of patience, but they look okay. If anyone out there has come up with a better solution, maybe for sourcing affordable custom keycaps or a clever way to print legends directly onto these switches, I'd be very interested to know. But for now, this works, and once everything is in place, the keyboard really starts to look like an Atom. So check alignment, make sure all the keys to press smoothly, and ensure that the ribbon cable is fully seated, and congratulations, the Hackjunk Atom is now fully assembled and ready for power on. Andy has published the files to 3D print a back part to the case, complete with holes. I'll be printing it and adding it to my case in due course. So there we go, the build's finished. Next time we'll program the EEPROM, power it up, and hopefully the Atom will come to life and we'll test out a few games on it. Thank you so much for watching episode 4 of the Hackjunk Atom build, and if you've enjoyed watching, please do hit the like and subscribe button, leave a comment. It really does help the channel grow. And remember, stabilisers are like cats, they only cooperate when they feel like it. See you next time. Bye.